Father Cafasso, who for 6 years had been my guide, was especially my spiritual director. If I have been able to do any good, I owe it to this worthy priest in whose hands I placed every decision I made, that is all my study and every activity in my life. It was Father Cafasso who first took me into the prisons, where I soon learned how great was the malice and misery of humankind. In the prison, I saw large numbers of young boys aged from 12 to 18, fine healthy youngsters alert of mind, but seeing them idle there, infested with lice, lacking food for body and soul was really sad. This horrified me. Public disgrace, family dishonor, and personal shame were personified in those unfortunate boys. What shocked me most was to see that many of them were released with the intention to lead a good life, and yet in a short time they landed back in prison within a few days of their release. Who knows, I thought to myself, if these youngsters had a friend outside, who would take care of them, help them, teach them religion on feast days. Who knows if they could be steered away from ruin, or at least reduce the number of those who returned to prison. This is an interesting incident that happened in the life of Father Cafasso. Father Cafasso had spent a whole week instructing and encouraging 45 notorious criminals in a large cell, in preparation for a feast of the Virgin Mary. Almost all of them had promised to go to confession on the eve of the feast day. But when the day arrived, no one had the courage to be the first one, whether because of human respect, the guile of the devil, or for some other reason. Father Cafasso renewed his request, briefly recalling the instructions, reminding them of their promise, but in vain. What was he to do? Laughingly he approached one of them, the tallest and strongest among them. Without uttering a word, he grabbed the man's long, thick beard in his frail hands. The prisoner with much courtesy said,
"Take all of me, but leave me my beard."
"I am not letting go of you, until you come and make your confession."
"But I'm not coming."
"Talk all you want, you're not going to get away from me. I won't let go of you, until you've made your confession."
"I'm not prepared."
"I will help you."
The convict could very easily have shaken off Father Cafasso's hold, but either out of respect for him, or better yet, because of God's grace, it is a fact that the convict yielded and allowed Father Cafasso to lead him to a corner of the large cell. The priest sat down on a straw mattress and prepared him for confession. Surprisingly, in a few moments, the convict was deeply moved, and amid tears and sighs, was just barely able to finish the recitation of his sins. Then something wonderful took place. This man, who previously had refused to go to confession, began to tell his fellow inmates that never in his life had he been as happy as right then. He was so enthused that he talked them all into making their confession. Whether one wishes to interpret this incident as a miracle of God's grace, or as a miracle of Father Cafasso's charity, he cannot but see in it the hand of God. I have to add that Father Cafasso did not finish hearing the convict's confessions until late that night, when the gates of the prison had already been barred and bolted, and he faced the prospect of spending the night with the inmates. And, yes, he was locked up for the night with the prisoners. But then came the guards for their inspection, carrying lanterns at the end of long iron rods, and armed with rifles, pistols, and swords. While they were checking the walls and the pavement for possible escape attempts, they noticed a stranger among the convicts.
"Who goes there? Who is that?"
They shouted, and without waiting for an answer, they surrounded Father Cafasso.
"What are you doing here? Who are you?"
Father Cafasso tried to speak, but the guards drowned his voice, shouting,
Stand still, don't move. Tell us who you are.
Wait. I am Father Cafasso.
Father Cafasso? What? At this hour? Why didn't you leave earlier? Why? We can't get you out of the prison without making a report to the warden.
I don't mind. Make your report. But you had better think it over, because you should have been here sooner, before nightfall, to check that all visitors had left the prison. That was your duty.
They were silent for a moment. They not only opened the gates for him, but to gain his goodwill, they even accompanied Father Cafasso home. At that time there were 4 prisons in Turin, one in the towers near Porta Palazzo, a second in Via San Domenico, in a building which later housed the House of Charity, a third in the Correctional near Holy Martyrs Church, and a fourth in the basement of the Senate building, across the road from the Barolo Villa. Father Cafasso served in all these 4 prisons. In this holy apostolate and heroic work of mercy, Father Cafasso chose Don Bosco as his companion.
Little by little, I instilled in them self-respect, and made them understand the reasonableness of earning one's daily bread by honest toil and not by stealing. No sooner had I made some religious and moral principle clear to them than their hearts filled with a great joy that prompted them to mend their ways. Every time I would emerge out from these grim walls of the prison, I was deeply moved with an ever stronger resolve to dedicate myself entirely, at whatever cost, to alleviating the pains and sufferings of these poor and abandoned youth. Saint Joseph Cafasso is also called the priest of the Gallows, and his feast day falls on June 23rd.